Hi there, it's Carl Irwin, the Common Magician, and this is the final video in the series on thumb tip magic. And in this last video, we're going to talk about handling. Not a lot to say. This isn't going to be nearly as long as the last video where we discussed in repetition, I understand, for about 45 minutes, 50 minutes there on fit, color, and philosophy about it being seen and viewed, and the various ways in which a thumb tip can fit quite differently between magicians, between performers, and all of them are right if it works for you. So that was the last discussion. This is going to be a little bit more narrow. We're just talking about handling, and I'll give you a couple of ideas, some thoughts that I have about handling a thumb tip, and also a resource or two there for you to investigate further. So I guess to really get into this, we'll kind of deal with the elephant in the room. This is a really nasty looking 6-inch silk, so you know that I have one. I would say that one thing that you need to be aware of is that there is a particular kind of handling for the vanishing of a silk, right? There's a way in which it is supposed to be done that you learn about in all of the magic type books, right? And I take issue with those teachings on that because I think it points to the method much too much, right? The method becomes much too visible in those teachings. So there's a way to handle a thumb tip where it can be much more obscured, much less obvious, and not merely because it is seen or not seen, okay, or viewed or not viewed, but actually just the way it is dealt with can tip off its presence. And I want to talk a little bit about that in the kind of the more appropriate ways to handle that kind of a use of the thumb tip. So we'll discuss that a little bit. I'll give you some resources that you can investigate. So the thumb tip is often taught in usage as a receptacle that fits when being loaded into a hand shaped like this, right? So the idea there being that you have the tip and you literally form your hand around the tip, and you would take the silk and you would push it into the hand through the opening right there. This is how it's taught, right? Likewise, it is often taught that, and never mind the get ready, there's other kind of goofy handlings for the get ready as well. Likewise, it is taught to push in with fingers down the line, right? Pinky, ring finger, middle finger, first finger, and then jam the thumb in. And then the idea is that's when you steal away the thumb tip and then it vanishes, right? The problem with this handling is that it is completely forced. It is completely forced, right? Putting something into your hand in this way, like a silk, is contrived. This is only done because there's a thumb tip that you have to put it into. That's the only reason why you're doing that. If you really had to put a silk into a hand, you would ball it up and you would put it in the hand. That's how you would do it, right? This points to the idea that you're putting it into something in the hand, right? You could vanish a silk using a thumb tip, using a completely different handling, and still using a thumb tip, and people wouldn't think that it's a thumb tip. Not just lay people who are aware of the vanishing silk, fake thumb, but magicians as well, right? So the first thing I would say is, as you're handling your thumb tip, get away from this. We all do it. We've all done it, but try to get away from this. Okay. The second thing is get as best you can, get away from this. Or even if you're going to do it this way, get away from this. Right? It makes no sense. It makes no sense. Instead, steal away your thumb tip from an alternative angle. If you must do this, and you shouldn't, use the back steal method, which is where you push down the thumb tip and you grab it from the back kind of lateral angle, perpendicular angle, and steal it away from that way. Okay. I posit that you should steal the thumb tip in the handling of the object if you're doing a vanish, or a switch if it's a bill or billet. Right? In the handling, you can show cleanliness and emptiness much like you would with a bill change, right? One hand at a time. And because you have an object, this is your opportunity to switch and in subtlety show the other hand. I can show my thumb in subtlety, my hand in subtlety, and I still can show this thumb over here, and I appear to be holding on to a silk. What I'm actually doing is I'm palming out my thumb tip. The thumb tip is not on the thumb. The thumb tip doesn't have to be on the thumb most of the time. The thumb tip can actually be in palm most of the time, and it can be put onto the thumb in the moments when you need to show complete emptiness, right? I can show in subtlety my hands completely empty at any time without ever seeing the thumb. So this comes back to that talk on the last video about should the thumb tip be seen. This is where a lot of people come down on this idea that a thumb tip should never be seen, right? The nickel-plated, hot pink colored thumb tip that is never ever seen. It doesn't even need to be flesh tone. It doesn't matter that your thumb tip is completely the wrong flesh color, because no one should ever see it at all. Well, I don't go there, but this is where that reasoning comes into play, is that you really can handle it with objects in hand such that it really doesn't ever have to be seen at all, right? You can really handle objects and hide it in the object or around the object or in palm. It doesn't even have to be hidden in the object necessarily. It can be just hidden in palm, where my thumbs are wide open and you just don't see it at all. That is a possibility in terms of handling, and you should investigate with palming the thumb tip at various moments. Once you've shown a palm in subtlety empty, right, you're free and clear to then palm something in because the hand is empty, right? You're not seeing my thumb tip. The thumb tip is completely out of view. The real issue comes into play after the vanish is done, after you've done the vanish. So here what we're doing is kind of balling up the silk, or whatever the object is, kind of at the tips of the fingers. And in doing so, we're able to make it vanish without ever having to close it into a fist. Now, here's where the problem comes in, is that I now have the thumb tip receptacle on the thumb with the object inside, and you're not really going to be able to keep it completely unseen in this view because you don't have an obstacle to hide it behind, and you need to show cleanliness of both hands somewhat simultaneously. That's the only way it's going to be accepted. So here is where you will see it in view, but you don't see it. You can keep it kind of obscured by fingers, and I'm still subtly showing hands empty. My hands are totally empty, and I no longer have the object. But you don't directly see the thumb tip. It's in this situation. It's obscured by fingers, even though the hand is empty. Can you see parts of it? Are they in view? Yes. This is why the flesh tone doesn't have to be very exact, because you're seeing it in shadow and obscured and kind of in a onward look. You don't get a good view. You don't get a good image of the receptacle. It's just somewhat in view, and therefore it's not seen. So I can make something vanish in this way, Once I've done this, I'm empty. I've shown emptiness in my hands. Now I can put it behind the fingers, and again, it's seen. It's in view, but it's not seen. It's not understood. It's not really something that is on full display. Night at the Museum, if you've seen the movie, right, where they play a cheap gag on the thumb tip, right? You don't do this. This is not how it is. I argue you don't really need to do this. You can do this. This is complete. The thumb tips are built to be presented in this way. They're designed to be done. I wouldn't do it like this where you have direct comparison, but you can show it in this way, in natural motion, and show it empty hands. There's, thumb tip is in view but unseen for a moment. You can do that, but you don't have to. You can show emptiness obscuring the thumb tip, and once I've done this, I can actually turn my hand over and I still don't really get a good look at it. So those are ideas that you should keep in mind when you're doing thumb tip handling. One is, don't put it as a receptacle in load this way. Don't do it. No one does that. This is completely uncalled for. The only reason why you do it is because it's a thumb tip and you're trying to load into the end of it. Don't do that. Load it in a different manner, at the fingertips, through the hand, into the hand in this way, right? I'm going to ball it up and place it into my fingers and then close up my palm. I can steal quite well this way. If I ball up, and you can see from the side view, and then I close my hand, I can very easily steal the thumb tip away in a manner that doesn't point to it going on to a digit, right, on my hand. So play with that. Obscure it. Keep it kind of covered in hand. Natural hand. This is often discussed in coin magic, in some sort of card palming. What does a natural hand look like? It doesn't look, and we all make these mistakes, right? It doesn't look like this, where I'm trying to show that my hand it can be open when I'm clearly trying to hold something back here, right? I'm keeping muscles tight, but at the same time, the fingers that aren't being used, I'm trying to show, and I'm exaggerating here. This is not natural. Natural is, assume that you're asleep. You have fallen completely asleep. You have no voluntary function. Everything is involuntary. My hand is totally at rest, sitting on the table. What does that look like? It looks like that. Could I hold something in my hand? You betcha I could. But this is natural. This does not draw suspicion at all. And the good thing about it is I can hold things in there. I can hold all kinds of stuff, right, in my hand in this view. I can hold the coins in a very natural position. So this is natural, and I can even bring up in Ramsey's Subtlety, and I'm empty. Yet I have a coin in my hand. So natural is really, what does your hand look like at total rest? And it looks like this. The fingers curl under. I'm not in a fist. I'm not tight, but they curl in towards the palm. The tendons pull the fingers that way. This is natural. So when you're thinking about a thumb tip in hand, not on the thumb, this is natural. Okay, this is natural with a thumb tip. And I can gesture and point and do all kinds of things. And I'm actually holding out a thumb tip. I have my thumb tip in my hand. The nice thing about a thumb tip is I don't have to worry about windows. It is flesh tone. So I can have relatively open fingers and still be palming the thumb tip, and it will not be seen, even though it is viewed. You're looking at a flesh tone, and it could be anything back there. It could be part of the thumb. It could be the palm you're looking at, or another finger. So you can palm the thumb in a natural kind of position. What does it look like on the thumb in natural view? Same thing, right? I can have the thumb obscured by the fingers in natural view. So that's my quick talk on handling. There really isn't a lot to say. I highly recommend Hal Saxon. Look him up. Look up his website. The guy is a self-proclaimed guru, but he's got the chops to prove it. He can show you how to make a thumb tip absolutely disappear. Magicians watch him do a silk vanish, and they don't see it. They think it's some other kind of method, and he even jokes about that a bit on his presentations. But Hal Saxon, check him out. He's got a bunch of pamphlets, very cheap, a lot of free teaching he does. You really want to know how to handle a thumb tip? he's the guy you want to look up. So that's it. Handling a thumb tip. That's my recommendations. Keep it obscured, keep it natural, and avoid broadcasting that you're using it by using these classic handling moves. Handle it much differently at the fingertips. So good luck with that. Happy magicking.